Father Cristino, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I'm glad we get to do this again, and you're participating in our Advent series. So every Friday, I've roped you in. You're going to give a reflection on St. Alphonsus' quotes, and so I'll give you the quote and then get your reaction to it, and we'll have a little discussion.
Sure.
So let's get right into it.
Okay.
St. Alphonsus says, "Brute animals that have been made for sensual delights find peace in earthly goods. Give to an ox a bundle of hay, and to a dog a piece of flesh, and they are content. They desire nothing more. But the soul, which has been created for no other end than to love God and to live in union with Him, shall never be able to find peace or happiness in sensual enjoyments. God alone can make her perfectly content." So, your first reaction to St. Alphonsus there?
He's just the best. I love St. Alphonsus, and he says something very profound, but in such simple terms, and you can tell who he's writing these things for, because he wants to make them very accessible to simple, common people,
Yes.
many of whom would have been uneducated. So he, like our Lord, with his parables, he's trying to use something that would be relatable to them. These were people, he was predominantly in southern Italy, all peasants, all farmers, and so he uses this image of animals that they would be very familiar with, that don't want anything else than to just eat. And seeing that they are content to just have, as he calls them, sensual delights, or something that pleases the senses, that is good enough for them. But the sign that we have been created differently is that that sort of thing, the sensual delights, never fully satisfy us. And that's part of why taking advantage of such things can actually lead to vice and to sin in our life, because it's never enough, right? We always want more. And because we want more, we eat too much and make ourselves sick, or we drink too much and we make ourselves drunk, or we watch TV or Netflix or stay online too long and we make ourselves dumb. Mm-hmm. Whatever we consume too much of corrupts us. And his point is that we consume too much is the sign that we are made for more than what physical, tangible things of this world can give us. We're made for something that is meant to be able to elevate our soul, and that's when he shifts towards talking about the soul and saying that the soul, which is capable of the infinite, cannot be satisfied by earthly things. And so we make a mistake if we just keep trying to get more and more and more earthly things. We'll go to the point where our body can't handle it anymore, and so it will be harmed. But it's because we have a soul that does want more, but that more is only fulfilled by God.
You know, we have some cats. I don't know if I've told you, we got 3 cats. I'm not an animal lover, but the kids love the cats. When the cats finish their food, they're done. And it's interesting that we as human beings don't do that. It's like this restlessness that is even further agitated when we look to sensual pleasures to satisfy what only God can satisfy. Do you think that when we are chasing sensual pleasures to an extreme where it's a dehumanizing experience?
Exactly, yeah. We are depriving ourselves of what we are uniquely capable of having as human beings by being filled by that which is also infinite and also immaterial, but we're trying to fill that void with something finite. And that's why it's never enough. And that's why we keep going until our body actually shuts down. Using the example of consuming too much alcohol is really helpful, because I think if we've either not personally experienced that, we perhaps have witnessed someone who behaves in such a way that is beneath their dignity when they've consumed too much alcohol, because they gave that infinite part of themselves over to something which could not fill it. And while they kept trying to fill it, it ended up rebelling against them. It caused them to make light of themselves, or to belittle themselves of their human dignity. And that's why, actually, speaking of St. Alphonsus, he has an axiom that's very common in moral theology, where he says, punishment is in the sin itself. When we have gone to some kind of excessive vice, that punishment is whatever it does to us. whether you become drunk or you make yourself sick to your stomach from what you've eaten, or you make yourself too lazy and your body become too whatever, not capable of doing all that it could if it was in better shape. All of those things, that's the punishment. So it's not as though we get to enjoy it in this life and then we'll pay for it later. You already pay for it now.
You're speaking of the excess.
Right.
Because obviously not all sensual pleasure is, it's not a problem, right, in moderation. Right. I think what he's talking about is the excess here. How many years have you been a priest? Correct me, I can't remember.
Well, 12, so yeah, since 12 and a half years.
So in 12 and a half years, have you seen a change or a shift in people's, if you want to say, addictions to sensual desires in that area? Or has it always kind of been the same?
I would say that I am now noticing, especially having been for 7 years in university campus ministry and with young adults, but even before that was officially my assignment, I've always been working with young people. Right. I have noticed a real shift away from the things that physically cause harm to young people. So as an example of the drunkenness, it was far more common, I'll say 10 years ago, that I was dealing with young people who routinely consumed too much alcohol. I don't hear much about that anymore. And actually, you'll run into a lot of young people who just don't drink. There isn't the culture of it anymore. It's not like they're really trying their best to be super virtuous. It's either that it's really expensive, or they know that it's bad for them, or they just, it hasn't really captured them the way that it used to. In the same way, it never used to be that big of a deal that people wasted so much time on their phones, and now that would be the predominant thing, that young people will come and in tears tell you that they feel like they're addicted to their phone and it's ruining their life. That was just completely unfamiliar to me 10 years ago. So it's a different thing, but the same problem.
Someone might be confused of how is the phone related to this sensual desire, this sensual appetite St. Alphonsus is speaking of?
Because it's that sensory overload. It's feeding your senses something. It doesn't matter which sense it is. It doesn't just have to be the sense of taste with what we put into our mouth. It's whatever we are trying to consume that stimulates something in us that is part of our human existence, but is that manifestation of something that is not capable of ever being satisfied because of the human soul that we have. And so if we keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, it's because we have the capacity for the infinite, but we're trying to fill that with something finite. Every video ends. Every time you've gone through the feed long enough, you eventually scroll back down. It's like a VLT machine, and you just got to pull that lever down and get it to reset so that you can look at a whole new set of things. And it just never ends. It never satisfies.
So somebody wrapping this video up, sitting there and thinking, okay, I want to take a step right now after this video to yield more fully to God. What's something practical and concrete someone can do as soon as this video is done?
I would say, if you're watching this video and you've been online for a while already, close the app, close your computer, turn off your phone, and just say a quick prayer. If we train ourselves to turn to prayer when we become aware that we're trying to fill ourselves with something that will not satisfy, even if we haven't sinned, even if we haven't really allowed a vice to take a hold of us, if that becomes the sign, I need to shift my focus. When we turn our mind and our heart to the Lord, it can be something very simple, it can be something memorized, or it can just be from our heart, but that is the thing that will help recalibrate us and put the sensual things of this world in their proper place.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.